Who would have thought that a woman demoted in humiliation before thousands of watching eyes could return stronger than ever? Not just to restore her honor, but to command an empire of 20,000 employees. This isn't just a career story. It's a symphony of cold, calculated revenge, brilliantly orchestrated, yet deeply human. Sometimes the greatest comebacks aren't born from forgiveness, but from the ashes of betrayal, where ambition meets vengeance in the gleaming towers of corporate America. My name is Emily Carter, and until 3 hours ago, I was somebody. The mahogany table in Conference Room A still gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, but I could no longer see my reflection in it, not clearly. Anyway, my vision blurred as Director Harrison's words echoed in my mind. Effective immediately. You'll be transitioning to a junior analyst role in operations. The way he said it, so casually, as if he were ordering lunch rather than dismantling 5 years of my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights at Northbridge Global Solutions. I'm 38 years old. I'd spent the last decade climbing this godforsaken corporate ladder, rung by painful rung. My fingers had bled from gripping so tightly to each promotion, each acknowledgement that I belonged here among the suits and the PowerPoints and the endless quarterly projections. Executive Director of Strategic Development, that had been my title, had been. Past tense. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. The meeting had been a massacre disguised as a restructuring discussion. 12 men around that table, their faces a blur of manufactured concern and barely concealed satisfaction. Peterson had actually smirked when Harrison delivered the blow. Gregory had the audacity to pat my shoulder afterward, his wedding ring cold against my blazer, whispering, "These things happen. Emily, you'll bounce back." Bounce back? As if my career were a rubber ball, not a carefully constructed monument I'd built presentation by presentation, project by project, while these men golfed their way to the top. The elevator ride down from the 40th floor to the 7th felt like descending into hell. Each floor that passed, 39, 38, 37, counted down my worth in this building. The executive floors with their pristine carpets and original artwork gave way to the middle management maze of cubicles and fluorescent headaches. When the doors finally opened on 7, the smell hit me first. Reheated coffee, copy machine toner, and defeat. My new desk, a cubicle, really, sat directly in view of the main hallway. Strategic placement, I realized. Everyone walking by could see Emily Carter, the fallen star, the cautionary tale. The woman who flew too close to the sun in her Ann Taylor suits and crashed back to earth in spectacular fashion. I sat down in the squeaky office chair, my hands trembling as I opened my laptop. The email was already there, sent to all staff. Organizational update, Strategic Development Division. My demotion packaged in corporate speak, sanitized for mass consumption. But everyone would know. In a company of 20,000 employees, gossip traveled faster than light. My phone buzzed. Sarah from marketing. OMG, Emily, what happened? Then another, and another. The sympathy texts poured in, each one another nail in the coffin of my professional reputation. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's skyline mocked me with its ambition. I'd stood in conference rooms high above, making decisions that moved millions of dollars. Now I sat in a cubicle, assigned to review procurement reports that an intern could handle. The worst part? I didn't even know why. My performance reviews were stellar. My projects had saved the company $12 million last quarter alone. But none of that mattered when the boys' club decided you were too ambitious, too female, too much of a threat. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the office floor, I realized this wasn't just a demotion. It was a public execution, designed to send a message to every woman in this building. Know your place, or we'll remind you of it. But they'd made one mistake. They'd left me alive. The 7th floor became my purgatory. Every morning, I walked past the executive elevator I could no longer use. My keycard now denied access to floors above 15. The security guard, Marcus, who used to greet me with, "Good morning, Director Carter," now just nodded silently, his eyes full of that particular discomfort reserved for witnessing someone's fall from grace. My cubicle was strategically positioned, I was certain of it now, directly in the path from the elevator to the break room, ensuring maximum visibility. A corporate scarlet letter. Yesterday, I caught 3 junior analysts whispering and pointing as they passed. They scattered like roaches when I looked up. The work itself was insulting. Purchase orders, vendor compliance reports, tasks I hadn't done since my first year out of Northwestern. My new supervisor, Bradley, a man I'd hired 3 years ago, sent me emails with subject lines like urgent coffee supply vendor review and action required toner cartridge inventory. He CC'd half the department, making sure everyone knew Emily Carter was now his subordinate. "How are you adjusting?" Bradley asked that Tuesday morning, leaning against my cubicle wall with studied casualness. He was 29, his MBA still fresh enough that he kept the diploma photo as his laptop wallpaper. "Fine," I said, not looking up from my screen. Great. Oh, I'm going to need that vendor analysis by end of day. The one for office supplies? Should be pretty straightforward for someone with your experience." The pause before experience was deliberate. Everything here was deliberate. Lunch was the worst. The executive dining room on 41 was now off limits. Instead, I sat in the 7th floor cafeteria, eating a sad desk salad while former peers walked by, their expressions cycling through pity, embarrassment, and relief that it wasn't them. Jennifer from legal actually crossed to the other side of the cafeteria to avoid eye contact. We'd had drinks just last month, celebrating her promotion. The internal company newsletter that Friday was the final humiliation. Under Organizational Updates, there it was, my photo from better days, smiling confidently in the navy dress I'd worn to last year's leadership summit. The caption read, "Emily Carter transitions to operations team, bringing strategic expertise to ground-level initiatives." Ground level. They might as well have said bottom feeder. That evening, I sat in my car in the parking garage, watching executives leave through the reserved exit. Harrison emerged at 6:47, laughing into his phone, probably heading to his golf club. Peterson followed 10 minutes later, climbing into his Tesla with the casual arrogance of a man who'd never been denied anything. My phone rang. My sister in Denver. "Em, I heard from LinkedIn that you changed positions? Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I lied, my voice steady from practice. "Are you sure? Because it seems like I have to go. Kate." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. 38 years old, divorced, no kids, because I'd chosen career over family. And now no career either. The woman staring back looked hollow, defeated, exactly what they wanted. The company's Slack channels told the real story. I still had access to some of them. Probably an IT oversight. The conversations were brutal. "Did you see Carter in the cafeteria? Yikes." From executive director to Bradley's assistant. "Guess she finally learned what happens when you push too hard." That last comment had 17 thumbs-up reactions. At home that night, I sat in my Lincoln Park apartment, the one I could barely afford anymore with my slashed salary, and opened my laptop. The retirement account I'd built showed numbers that meant nothing if I couldn't last here long enough to collect. The mortgage statement for this place assumed an executive salary. Everything in my life had been built on the foundation of my career, and they dynamited it in a single afternoon. The wine helped until it didn't. The sleeping pills helped until those stopped working too. By Sunday night, I stood at my apartment window, watching the city lights below, and realized they weren't trying to make me quit. That would be too easy, too clean. They wanted me here, broken and visible, a warning to others. The glass ceiling wasn't just there to stop us, it was there to showcase what happened to those who tried to break through. But standing there, something shifted. The humiliation began to crystallize into something else, something harder, sharper. They wanted me visible? Fine, let them watch. The email came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday, 3 weeks into my humiliation. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 6 a.m. Wacker Drive Starbucks. Come alone. L. I knew that initial. Lena Brooks, Senior Director of Financial Analytics. One of the few women who'd made it to the upper floors and survived. We'd barely exchanged 10 words in 5 years. But I'd always sensed she was watching, calculating. I arrived at 5:45, ordered a black coffee, and waited. Lena walked in precisely at 6. Her movements sharp and purposeful despite the early hour. She slid into the seat across from me, her eyes scanning the nearly empty coffee shop. Your demotion wasn't about performance, she said without preamble. I figured that much out myself. No, you don't understand. She pulled out her phone, opened an encrypted messaging app. They needed you gone from strategic development because you were getting too close to something. The Midwest procurement contracts you were reviewing last quarter? My pulse quickened. I'd flagged several irregularities in those contracts before my demotion. But Harrison had told me to drop it, said it was outside my scope. What about them? They're hiding a $12 million embezzlement scheme. Shell companies, inflated invoices, kickbacks. The whole executive board of strategic development is in on it. Harrison, Peterson, Gregory, all of them. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. Why are you telling me this? Because they did the same thing to me 2 years ago. I was investigating discrepancies in our Asian markets division, got too close, got reassigned to special projects. The difference is I kept digging, quietly, carefully. She leaned forward. Emily, they don't just demote threats, they destroy them. You're not the first, and you won't be the last unless someone stops them. And you want me to be that someone. I want us to be that someone. I have 2 years of evidence, but I need more. And you have something I don't. A destroyed career? Access to the 7th floor, to Bradley's files? He's Harrison's lapdog. Handles all the paperwork they don't want traced back to the executive level. Your new position is actually perfect for finding what we need. I stared at her, this woman I'd barely known, offering me something I hadn't realized I was looking for, the truth. What kind of evidence do you have? She pulled out a second phone, one I was certain wasn't registered to her name. The screen showed spreadsheets, emails, transaction records, names, dates, amounts. It was meticulous. 2 years of documenting every suspicious transaction, every off-the-books meeting, every suddenly wealthy vendor. But it's not enough. We need the smoking gun. The direct link between the executives and the shell companies. That's in Bradley's files. How do you know? Because I've been watching him. Every Thursday, he stays late, accesses files on a separate server, one that's not supposed to exist. He thinks he's alone on the 7th floor, thinks everyone's gone home. But the cleaning crew talks, if you know how to listen. My mind raced. The 7th floor, my prison could become my weapon. What about IT? They monitor everything. Not everything. There are gaps, blind spots. I have a friend in cybersecurity, Mike Donovan. He's clean, hates what's happening but needs his job. He can create windows for us, 10 minutes here and there where the surveillance goes dark. And if we get caught, Lena's smile was sharp as winter. Then we're 2 disgruntled female employees trying to cause trouble. They'll fire us, discredit us, maybe even sue us. But Emily. She leaned back, her eyes hard. What exactly do you have left to lose? She was right. They'd already taken everything that mattered to me professionally. My reputation was in ruins, my career derailed. Rock bottom had a certain freedom to it. There's more, Lena continued. The board doesn't know. Most of them, anyway. Walter Cromwell, the one who pushed for more diversity in leadership last year, he's been asking questions. If we can get proof to him, real undeniable proof, he has the power to call an emergency board meeting, bypass Harrison entirely. You've thought this through. For 2 years, I've thought of nothing else. But I needed someone else, someone with fresh wounds and nothing to lose. Someone angry enough to take the risk. She stood, leaving a business card on the table. Not her official one. This one just had a phone number. That phone is encrypted. If you're in, Text me by midnight tomorrow. If not, we never had this conversation. She left, and I sat there as the morning rush began to fill the coffee shop. Around me, Chicago's workers started their day, oblivious to the conversation that had just changed everything. That evening, I stayed late at the office. The 7th floor was quiet, just as Lena had said. Bradley's office door was locked, but his assistant's desk wasn't. I casually walked by, noting the filing system, the desktop setup, the security camera positions. For the first time in 3 weeks, I felt something other than humiliation and despair. I felt the spark of purpose, of possibility. At 11:58 p.m., I sent a single word to the encrypted number. In. The response was immediate. Good. The real work begins Monday. Monday came with a new routine. Arrive early, leave late, become invisible furniture on the 7th floor. But now every moment had purpose. Mike Donovan was a ghost in the system. We never met in person. Lena insisted on that. His communications came through seemingly innocent IT maintenance emails. System update tonight, 9:47, 9:57 p.m. meant 10 minutes of dead surveillance cameras. Printer maintenance required, Station 7B, meant Bradley's office sector would be off the grid. I built my network carefully, not with executives or managers, but with the invisible army that actually ran Northbridge, the admins, the cleaning crew, the security guards, the IT help desk. People like Rosa, who cleaned the 7th floor and had seen every late-night meeting that wasn't supposed to happen. Or Jamie from mailroom, who noticed which packages came through unofficial channels. You were always nice to us, Rosa told me one evening, pretending to empty my trash while slipping me a key card she'd found lost near Bradley's office. Even when you were big shot upstairs. The first breakthrough came 3 weeks in. Thursday night, 9:47 p.m. Mike's window opened. I was ready with a USB drive that would self-destruct its data if accessed incorrectly. Another gift from Mike's paranoia. Bradley's computer was logged off, but his assistant had helpfully written his password on a post-it note tucked under her keyboard tray. Corporate security at its finest. The files were worse than Lena had suspected. Not just embezzlement, full-scale fraud, government contracts marked up 400%. Safety inspections bypassed, environmental reports falsified, and every transaction traced back to a company called Midwest Solutions LLC, registered in Delaware, owned by a trust that, after 5 layers of digging, led back to Harrison's brother-in-law. I photographed everything. Old school. Lena had insisted. Digital forensics could be traced, but photos of screens with timestamps from a burner phone? Harder to dispute, harder to track. The close calls came often. Once, Peterson appeared on the 7th floor at 10 p.m., supposedly looking for a report. I ducked into the women's bathroom, standing on a toilet seat so my feet wouldn't show under the stall. Listening to his footsteps pause outside Bradley's office. Another time, its security did an unexpected sweep. Mike managed to send a warning just in time. I spent 40 minutes hiding in a supply closet, my heart hammering against my ribs. We met in person only once a week, always in different locations. A laundromat in Chinatown, the back row of a morning movie screening, a cemetery where Lena pretended to visit a grave while I jogged past. We need more, she said during one exchange at a bus stop. The fraud is clear, but we need their communications. Emails explicitly discussing the scheme. That meant accessing Harrison's office, the 40th floor, the executive level my keycard would never open. The solution came from an unexpected source. David from IT, not part of Mike's network, but a kid I'd mentored years ago when he was an intern. I heard what they did to you, he said one day, fixing my computer with unnecessary slowness. It's bullshit. I said nothing, but he continued. You know, executive keycards get recoded monthly, but there's a 24-hour grace period where the old codes still work. For system transition, Harrison always recodes his on the first Tuesday. The first Tuesday was 5 days away. That weekend, I met Lena at a pet store, pretending to look at fish while we talked. It's too risky, she said. It's the only way. We need those emails. If you're caught up there, then it's over. But if we don't try, we're just collecting evidence forever while they keep stealing. She was quiet for a long moment, watching the fish circle their tanks. I have an old keycard from when I had 40th floor access. If David's right about the grace period, you'd do that. I've been dead in this company for 2 years, Emily. At least you're trying to resurrect us both. Tuesday arrived gray and rainy. At 8:47 p.m., I stood at the executive elevator, Lena's old card in my hand. The scanner beeped red. I tried again. Red. On the third try, already preparing my excuse for security, it turned green. The 40th floor was silent, dimly lit by emergency lighting and the Chicago skyline beyond the windows. Harrison's corner office was locked, but the same keycard opened it. Sloppy security for a man hiding millions in fraud. His computer was encrypted, but he'd made the classic executive mistake. His passwords were written in a leather-bound notebook in his top drawer. As I downloaded file after file onto the USB drive, I found it all. Emails discussing the Delaware arrangement, instructions to Bradley about destroying documents, a message to Peterson celebrating another successful quarter of alternative revenue streams. And then, the crown jewel, a draft email to the entire executive team, never sent, outlining plans to frame me for the irregularities if the auditors got too close. Dated 2 weeks before my demotion. Download complete. The screen showed I had everything. As I turned to leave, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Security making rounds. I slipped out the other door, took the stairs down 2 floors, then caught a regular elevator with a group of late-working accountants. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the USB drive that contained enough evidence to destroy them all. Lena and I now had our weapon. The question was how to use it without becoming casualties ourselves. The game of deception became my second skin. Emily, you seem more settled lately, Bradley observed, standing over my cubicle with his morning coffee. It was week 6 of my purgatory, and I'd perfected the art of appearing broken but functional. Just focusing on the work, I replied, keeping my voice flat, defeated. You were right, these vendor reports are actually quite engaging. He smiled, that patronizing twist of lips that made me want to show him the photos I had of his fraudulent signatures. Instead, I returned to my screen, playing the part of the obedient fallen executive. The strategy was simple: become so pathetic, so thoroughly crushed, that they stopped watching me closely. It worked. Harrison passed me in the hallway without a second glance. Peterson actually patted my shoulder at the quarterly meeting, murmuring about resilience and finding your new path. Meanwhile, I was building an army. Every Tuesday, I held Excel training sessions for the junior staff. Officially, I was sharing my expertise with entry-level employees. Unofficially, I was identifying allies. These 20-somethings, drowning in student loans and watching executives embezzle their futures, were hungry for something to believe in. Why do you help us? Asked Melissa, a financial analyst barely a year out of college. They treat you like nothing, I finished. Because you're not nothing, and someday, this company will need people who remember what integrity looks like. She stayed after class that day, closed the door, and whispered, I've seen things, in the accounts, things that don't add up. One by one, they came forward. The junior accountant who'd been told to ignore discrepancies. The admin assistant who'd been asked to backdate documents. The IT specialist who'd been ordered to delete emails. Each one thought they were alone, guilty of enabling something they didn't fully understand. I gave them purpose. Small tasks, nothing traceable. Watch for this. Document that. Save everything. But quietly, Lena, meanwhile, worked on Cromwell. She had to be careful. One wrong move and he'd alert Harrison. But she had an advantage. Cromwell's daughter worked in our Singapore office, and Lena had helped her navigate a sexual harassment claim the previous year. Trust, carefully earned, opened doors. He's interested, Lena told me during a brief encounter at a food truck. But he needs more than evidence. He needs political cover. 2 board members minimum to call an emergency session. Who else? Margaret Chen from the pension fund. She's been questioning the quarterly reports. And possibly Richard Santos, he's old school. Hates corruption more than he loves golf with Harrison. The beauty of appearing defeated was the access it gave me. They assigned me to organize the annual shareholder meeting logistics, grunt work for someone of my former level. But it meant I had contact lists, schedules, and legitimate reasons to email board members' assistants. I crafted each communication carefully, never suspicious, always helpful. Mrs. Chen's dietary restrictions for the shareholders' dinner. Mr. Santos's preferred seating arrangement. Building rapport one email at a time. Harrison, drunk on his own power, made it easier. He became increasingly bold, openly discussing special projects in the elevator, assuming the beaten-down woman in the corner wasn't listening. Peterson started using my cubicle area for private calls, thinking I was too focused on my mindless spreadsheets to pay attention. The Delaware situation is solid, I heard him say once. Even if someone found out, who'd believe them over us? I documented everything in a journal that looked like meeting notes. Dates, times, direct quotes. My handwriting filled 3 notebooks that I kept in a safety deposit box even Lena didn't know about. The junior staff started calling me Professor Carter as a joke. But there was respect in it. I taught them Excel, but also corporate survival, how to document everything. How to BCC personal emails when something felt wrong. How to protect themselves in a system designed to consume them. You're different than before, Melissa observed one evening as we worked late, she legitimately, me performing for the security cameras. How so? Before, when you were an executive, you were untouchable. Now, you're one of us. I was never untouchable, I just didn't know it yet. The irony was delicious. In trying to humiliate me, they'd given me something more powerful than any executive title, invisibility and the loyalty of the forgotten. The 7th floor had become my kingdom, built not on corporate hierarchy, but on shared purpose with people who had nothing to lose. 6 weeks into my performance, I overheard Bradley on a call. Emily? No, she's completely broken. Spends her time teaching Excel to interns. It's actually sad. I kept typing my vendor report, suppressing a smile. Let them think that. Let them believe they'd won. Because tomorrow, Lena would have her second meeting with Cromwell. The journal would be photographed and uploaded to a secure cloud. Mike would create another surveillance gap for me to access the backup server where they thought they'd hidden the second set of books. They wanted me visible, but defeated. I gave them exactly what they wanted to see. A broken woman going through the motions, teaching Excel to juniors, eating lunch alone, accepting her fate. They never noticed that the broken woman was taking notes, that the Excel students were learning more than formulas, that the lunch hours alone were spent encrypting files. I was playing a character in their corporate theater, and they were too arrogant to realize I was also writing the final act. The first leak hit the Chicago Tribune on a Tuesday morning. Northbridge Global under fire for questionable vendor contracts. Not front page, just a small piece in the business section. But it was enough to make Harrison call an emergency meeting on the 40th floor. From my cubicle, I watched the executives scramble through the glass ceiling above, literal and metaphorical. Lena had been surgical about it. One reporter, one piece of evidence, nothing traceable to us. Just enough to make them nervous, to force mistakes. Everyone remained calm, Bradley announced to the 7th floor, sweat beading on his forehead. It is investigating the source of this malicious leak. Mike texted me from his burner phone. They're chasing ghosts, looking for external hackers. The second leak came 3 days later. This time to a financial blog with a smaller but more targeted audience, institutional investors. Questions about inflated government contracts, screenshots of suspicious invoices, carefully cropped to hide our full hand. The stock price dipped 2%. In the executive dining room they'd banned me from, Peterson was reportedly screaming at IT security. Harrison had fired 2 junior accountants he suspected, both innocent. The paranoia was spreading like poison through their veins. "We need to accelerate," Lena said during a brief meeting in a hospital parking garage. "Cromwell is on board, but he's getting cold feet with all this chaos." That night, I did something risky. I sent an anonymous package to Margaret Chen, not evidence, but a single question printed on unmarked paper. "Ask Harrison about Midwest Solutions LLC at the next board meeting." The beauty of paranoia is how it compounds. Harrison, rattled by the leaks, overreacted to everything. He ordered a complete audit of the 7th floor, convinced the threat was internal. Bradley made us all submit to security interviews. "Emily," he said during mine, trying to look authoritative despite being 15 years my junior. "Have you noticed anything unusual? Anyone asking questions about executive decisions?" "I've been pretty focused on these vendor reports," I said, letting exhaustion creep into my voice. Though what? Nothing. It's probably nothing. "Emily, if you know something—" I hesitated, then whispered. "Peterson's assistant, Jennifer. She's been staying late, asking about old contracts, but I'm sure it's just due diligence." The seed was planted. By end of day, Jennifer was suspended pending investigation. Peterson, paranoid about his own assistant, started working alone, making mistakes, leaving paper trails he usually had her clean up. The third leak was the kill shot, sent simultaneously to 3 major outlets and the SEC's anonymous tip line. Not everything, just enough. Evidence of the shell company. 3 fraudulent invoices, and a single email from Harrison discussing alternative revenue streams. The stock price dropped 9% in after-hours trading. Friday morning, I arrived to find the 40th floor in chaos, visible even from my cubicle. Security guards stationed at every entrance. Lawyers in expensive suits flooding the executive conference room. And then, the beautiful sight. FBI agents walking through the lobby. "Everyone continue normal operations," Bradley announced, his voice cracking. "This is routine, completely routine." But we all knew it wasn't. The junior staff, my Excel students, exchanged knowing looks. They'd been waiting for this, some of them helping in ways they'd never fully understand. At lunch, an emergency board meeting was called. Cromwell had found his moment. With the FBI sniffing around and the stock price tumbling, he had the political cover he needed. I sat at my cubicle, calmly entering vendor data, while above me, the empire burned. Harrison was escorted out by legal counsel at 2 p.m. Peterson left an hour later, his face ashen. Bradley locked himself in his office, frantically shredding documents, too late, since we'd already photographed everything important. The internal email came at 4:47 p.m. Effective immediately, Harrison, Peterson, Gregory, and Bradley have been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The 7th floor erupted in whispers. My Excel students looked at me, questions in their eyes. I kept typing, playing my part until the final curtain. At 5:15, Margaret Chen herself appeared on our floor, the first board member to ever visit the 7th floor. She walked straight to my cubicle. "Ms. Carter," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The board would like to speak with you." I looked up, feigning surprise. "About vendor reports? About your future with this company?" As I stood to follow her, the entire floor was watching, some confused, some beginning to understand. Melissa, my star Excel student, was smiling. The elevator ride to the boardroom was silent. Chen studied me with calculating eyes. "That question about Midwest Solutions," she said finally. "That was you." It wasn't a question, so I didn't answer. "Cromwell says you have additional information that might help us understand the full scope of this situation." "I might have noticed some irregularities," I said carefully. She almost smiled. "I'm sure you have?" The boardroom doors opened. Cromwell was there, along with Santos and 3 other board members I recognized from my shareholder meeting prep. But more importantly, Lena was there, sitting at the table like she belonged. "Ms. Carter," Cromwell said, "we have a crisis. We need someone who understands what's been happening, someone who can help us clean house." I sat down, placing my hands flat on the mahogany table, the same type where my humiliation had begun 8 weeks ago. "I believe I can help with that," I said. The trap had been sprung. Now came the feast. The emergency board meeting stretched into its 3rd hour. The mahogany table was now covered with evidence, printouts, financial records, emails, spreading like blood from a wound. "This goes back 3 years," I said, my voice steady despite the electricity in my veins. 12 million in fraudulent invoices, 6 million in kickbacks, and another 4 million simply disappeared. Cromwell's face darkened with each revelation. Santos had stopped taking notes, his pen frozen mid-air. Margaret Chen was the only one who seemed unsurprised, her expression carved from stone. "How did you obtain this information?" asked Thomas Whitfield, the board's legal counsel. "I observed irregularities in my role in operations. When you're processing vendor reports 8 hours a day, patterns emerge." "From the 7th floor?" Santos asked, skepticism creeping into his voice. "The 7th floor sees everything," I replied. "Every invoice, every contract, every payment. We're just trained not to look too closely." Lena spoke for the first time. "The evidence is independently verifiable. The FBI has already frozen the Midwest Solutions accounts. They'll find the same trail we did." "We?" Chen's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Brooks identified similar patterns in her division," I said carefully. "We compared notes." Whitfield shuffled through the papers. "This email about framing you for the irregularities, if this is real." "It's real. Check the metadata. Check the server logs. Your IT department can verify everything." The room fell silent. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's skyline glittered, indifferent to the corporate massacre happening 40 floors up. "We need new leadership," Cromwell said finally. "Immediate leadership. The SEC is breathing down our necks. Investors are panicking. And we have 20,000 employees who deserve better than this." "I recommend promoting Michael Stewart from the London office," Santos suggested. "He's clean, respected." "He's also in London," Chen interrupted. "We need someone here, now. Someone who understands the damage, who can testify to the FBI, who can clean house without destroying the company." They all turned to look at me. "Ms. Carter," Cromwell said slowly, "you were executive director of strategic development before your reassignment." "I was. You understand our operations, our contracts, our systems." "I do." "And you have the trust of the employees, particularly those who've been ignored or marginalized by the previous leadership." I thought of my Excel students, of Rosa, the cleaning lady, of Mike in IT. "I believe I do." Chen leaned forward. "What would you need to fix this?" The question hung in the air. 8 weeks ago, I'd been destroyed in a room like this. Now they were offering me resurrection, and more. Full autonomy to restructure, access to all records, all servers, all accounts. The authority to terminate anyone involved in the fraud, regardless of their level. And the ability to promote from within. The 7th floor has talent that's been deliberately overlooked. "That's significant power," Whitfield warned. "The corruption is significant," I countered. "Half measures won't cut out this cancer." Santos laughed, bitter and short. "You're talking about running the company. I'm talking about saving it." Another silence. Chen pulled out her phone, typed something, showed it to Cromwell. He nodded. "The board needs to vote," Cromwell announced. "All in favor of appointing Emily Carter as interim CEO of Northbridge Global Solutions, effective immediately?" My heart stopped. CEO. Not just restoration, elevation beyond anything I'd dreamed. One by one. The hands went up, Chen, Cromwell, Santos. Whitfield abstained, the lawyer in him cautious. But it was enough. Motion carried, Cromwell said. Congratulations, Ms. Carter. You're now responsible for 20,000 employees and a company in crisis. The weight of it should have been crushing. Instead, it felt like armor clicking into place. My first act, I said, standing, is to promote Lena Brooks to Chief Operating Officer. My second is to terminate the employment of Harrison, Peterson, Gregory, and Bradley, pending criminal investigation. My third is to call an all-hands meeting for Monday morning. It's Friday evening, Santos pointed out. Then we have the weekend to prepare. Mr. Whitfield, I'll need you to coordinate with the FBI. Ms. Chen, can you handle investor relations? Mr. Cromwell, the media will need a statement. I was giving orders to board members, and they were listening. The power shift was seismic. As we filed out, Chen caught my arm. You played this perfectly. The leaks, the paranoia, the evidence. But what I want to know is, was it just about justice? I met her eyes directly. They didn't just demote me. They tried to erase me, make me nothing. Sometimes justice and revenge are the same thing. She smiled then, sharp and approving. The best CEOs are a little ruthless. Remember that? By 9 p.m., the news had leaked. Not from us, but from someone who'd seen me in the boardroom. The company Slack exploded. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from employees, reporters, competitors. I stood in what had been Harrison's office, my office now, looking down at the 7th floor far below. In a few hours, I'd gone from the cubicle to the corner office, from the bottom to the top. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Harrison and his cronies would face justice. But more importantly, Northbridge would be rebuilt. The 7th floor would rise. The invisible would be seen. I thought of that morning 8 weeks ago when I'd been destroyed in conference room A. They'd made one mistake. They'd left me alive. Now I was their reckoning. Monday morning, 9 a.m. The atrium of Northbridge Global Solutions was packed with all 20,000 employees. Those who couldn't fit stood watching on screens throughout the building. I walked onto the makeshift stage, the click of my heels echoing through the silence. No podium, no notes. Just me, standing before an ocean of faces that ranged from confused to hopeful to skeptical. 8 weeks ago, I began, my voice carrying clear and strong. I was demoted from executive director to junior analyst. I was humiliated, discarded, and meant to serve as a warning to anyone who dared challenge the status quo. A ripple went through the crowd. They hadn't expected this candor. I spent weeks on the 7th floor, processing vendor reports, eating lunch alone, teaching Excel to interns. Some of you walked past my cubicle. Some of you whispered. Some of you pitied me. I found Melissa in the crowd, my star Excel student, and gave her the slightest nod. But what Harrison, Peterson, and their group didn't understand is that the 7th floor, all the lower floors, are where the real work happens. Where Rosa cleans our offices and notices which executives stay late shredding documents. Where Mike in IT sees which files get mysteriously deleted. Where junior analysts like Melissa catch discrepancies that executives tell them to ignore. The crowd was leaning in now, hungry. The corruption that infected this company started at the top, but it was enabled by a culture that said some people matter and others don't. That your title determines your truth. That ends today. I paused, scanning the executive section where a few pale faces sat, those who'd survived the purge but knew they were on notice. As of this morning, Harrison, Peterson, Gregory, and Bradley are not just terminated, they're under federal investigation. The FBI has frozen $12 million in fraudulent assets. The SEC is working with us to ensure full transparency. Applause started from the 7th floor section and spread like wildfire. But we're not just cutting out the cancer, we're rebuilding. Lena Brooks, who fought this corruption for 2 years in isolation, is your new chief operating officer. Mike Donovan, who protected our data while risking his job, is our new chief information security officer. And Melissa Chen, who had the courage to document what she saw as a junior analyst, will lead our new internal audit division. The roar was deafening. The seventh floor had risen. To those who participated in the corruption, who looked the other way, who benefited from the silence, you have 48 hours to come forward. Confess, cooperate, and you might keep your freedom, if not your job. After 48 hours, we turn everything over to the FBI. Fear rippled through certain sections. Good. To everyone else, the 99% who come here every day to do honest work, your patience is over. Your voices will be heard. Your contributions will be valued. We're implementing anonymous reporting systems, restructuring pay scales, and promoting from within based on merit, not golf handicaps. Laughter now, mixed with applause. Northbridge Global Solutions has 20,000 employees. Every single one of you matters. From the C-suite to the mailroom, from the 40th floor to the basement, we rise or fall together. I looked directly at the camera broadcasting this, knowing Harrison was probably watching from his lawyer's office. To those who tried to bury me, who thought humiliation would break me, who believed their power was absolute, thank you. You taught me that real power doesn't come from titles or corner offices. It comes from truth, from loyalty earned, not demanded, and from the courage to stand back up when someone tries to push you down. The crowd was on its feet now. Not the polite applause of corporate theater, but genuine, raw appreciation. We have work to do. The stock price is down, trust is broken, and we're under investigation, but we will rebuild. We will be better. And we will never again let anyone treat human beings as disposable. I raised the microphone one last time, my voice cutting through their cheers. Welcome to the new Northbridge. We start now. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off stage, I saw them, my Excel students, Rosa, Mike, all the invisible people who'd helped me bring down an empire. They were crying, laughing, embracing. Lena met me backstage, her expression unreadable. Satisfied? She asked. I thought of Harrison's smirk when he'd demoted me, Peterson's pat on my shoulder, Bradley's condescension, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, the careful planning, the sweet moment when the FBI walked through our doors. Yes, I said simply. She smiled. Good. Because the real work starts now. I looked back at the crowd, at my company, my 20,000 employees who deserved better and would now get it. They'd wanted me visible and broken. Instead, I became visible and unbreakable. The revenge was complete. The transformation had just begun. Thank you for listening to this story of corporate revenge and redemption. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to know. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Emily's position? Your perspectives make these stories richer for our entire community. Until next time. Remember, sometimes the best revenge is a comeback nobody saw coming.